Thanks for that question. We do that formally and informally. We do have a youth advisory council where we invite students from all across the state to give input. Sometimes when we work on legislation, we convene students. When we worked on the bill to say that we'd have gender inclusive bathrooms, we actually had a work group of students who gave us input. And then that led to legislation that created an opportunity for young people to advise me and the department on all things on creating safety for LGBTQ plus students. But we ask for the input whenever we can, and we welcome it. I would say even with that, it's never enough. We should always find ways to do more, and I'm committed to that. You know, from my first days on the school board, we established a youth commission on the school board so that we could hear from young people. And so while we're doing some, we can do more. I mean, I'm very excited. I passed a bill. One of the bills that I'm proudest of is a bill that says every single school district in the state has to have a student voting member. And I'm excited to have passed that legislation. And guess where the idea came from? It came from students who said,
Of course.
why don't we partner on this bill? And I said, sure, let's do it. And typically when I visit schools, even when I visit, juvenile facilities, I'll say, look, I'd like you all to work with me on a bill. If you have an idea, propose it. All you have to do to pass legislation is have an idea. And young people have brought some great ideas forward. And I'm looking forward to being able to do more, to hear more student perspective.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like I've been able to see that more and more, like students are being engaged in commissions or in board meetings and things like that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We're excited to see that momentum. I loved how in your speech you talked about sort of the digital divide and how that's growing. As technological disparities disproportionately affect like underserved communities, and you talked about that even yourself, as 1 million California kids during the pandemic didn't even have internet access.
Yeah.
As technologies get more advanced, how is our means of allocating those technologies equally getting more advanced?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we saw, part of what may have fueled the disparity is that school districts were left to their own to try and figure out how to get, a device in every student's hands. And so the school districts that had a little more money were more in a position to be one-to-one, and then other districts weren't. Other districts, you saw kids sitting outside of a Taco Bell trying to access the internet. We're California, we're better than that, right? That should not be what our students have to do to get access to the internet. They should have a device, they should have internet, and they should be getting training so that they can become engineers and work in software or cybersecurity, whatever it is that they want to do. And so, we have tried and we're continuing to try to get legislation passed to create some graduation requirements around computer science. But even if that doesn't happen, I've convened this group that I call the STEAM Advisory Council, where I want people who work in technology to help advise our schools to make sure that our schools know what employers are looking for and they know where the trends are. Because by the time government catches up to what the sector is doing, we're going to be behind. And I don't want our students to be completely behind. I want them to know the trends and to know that they can work towards it and to know that they can get a great job working in technology, right? Let's face it, it's very expensive to live anywhere in this country, including in this state. And so to me, I think the only way we're going to help people to be able to make it in this environment is if they can get access to good paying jobs, and technology has a lot of them. And a lot of times California employers say they have to look outside of California. I see that as a unique opportunity for us to build the workforce for technological companies, not just in California and in the world, but especially for California. And so I think that we can work through the disparities. I think it's taken us some time, but we're beginning to see more broadband in rural communities. But then you hear about big cities where kids have really slow internet. And so I think we have to get internet service providers all working together to provide high quality internet. I think we have to make sure that students have access to devices. You all know better than I do, students don't need much training on how to use these devices. It's pretty much intuitive. I can remember coming home with like a new smartphone and not knowing how to use it and reading through the manual, and my 2 teenage daughters just like grabbing the phone and saying, "Dad, why are you reading that? This is how it works." I thought they were breaking it. They're like, "No, it slides, it shifts, it does this, it does that." And so we have to harness that intuitive nature of our young folks, but give them access to top technology so that California students can lead the way in the nation.
I love how keen into that you are, because it's true. We have the knowledge, we just need the tools.
And we just need to listen and then get out of your way, right? And, I call my kids the IT department. If I don't know how to do it, I just ask them. And they just, without reading anything, they know how to do it. And so that's a strength. That is a strength for California students. That is a strength for American students. That's a strength for young people everywhere. And our job is to listen. And I know that's one of the big themes of Safer Internet Day 2025 is really listening to the voices and the experiences of students. I can't think of a better moment and a better opportunity for us to do that, to figure out how we provide a quality product that will be safe for students and their families, and that will help us to excel in every aspect of our technological uses.
We appreciate that. I think we both have one question each.
Yeah. You also mentioned the phone restrictions and how naturally there has been students who don't agree with that as much. I'm sure as a student, I see my community sometimes doesn't agree with that. But then you also mentioned your true intentions behind that with stopping bullying and things like that. How do you deal with pushback against legislation and reforms that you put back, knowing that you're trying to just have best intentions, but not everyone is going to like what you do?
Well, I want to thank you all for being so kind. When I started talking about the cell phone ban in class, I thought I might get thrown out, but right? But mostly I talk to parents. I talk to them about my own experiences as a parent. The first time my daughter, who's now 18, was at a school where they said she had to put her phone in a pouch, I was nervous. I was anxious, and I thought, what if I can't reach her? And she was also a little upset about that, but she worked through those feelings, and I did too. And I found that there are ways to keep your school safe and to still be in communication. You can have one phone still in the classroom in case there's an emergency. If someone has a health issue, they're allowed to have their phone in a pouch and have it be unlocked so that they can access it. And so there are alternatives to just locking it down. But by having that policy, we can stop the bullying that has occurred. And so while nothing is perfect, I think it creates an opportunity for us to create a better environment at school. The schools that have practiced having phones secured have seen a boost in academic success. They've seen a reduction in bullying. And ultimately, I think we have to get at a reduction in the overall depression and anxiety that we've seen for our kids. I know this is a hard message for, the big social media companies to hear, but they can play a role too in helping to offset what has occurred in terms of the levels of depression for kids and getting sucked into the rabbit hole of, just being dragged deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so this is a place where I think that young folks can really provide significant experience to help us think through how do you implement a ban in a way that keeps schools safe, allows students to have access, right? That phone should still be a tool, right? That should be a way to get information quickly, not during a test or something like that, right? But it really is a tool. And I think that we have to maximize how that tool gets used and figure out how to minimize. You're gonna always have risks. You can always have folks who abuse something. We have to figure out how to minimize that to get the most out of that tool.
I agree. That's a beautiful segue into this. I found your background so fascinating, just in the depth of culture, but also experience. Did you grow up in debate?
I tried out for debate.
Okay.
And I wasn't as good at it because there are a lot of formal rules. And I tried in debate to always go off the cuff and be a little more dramatic. And, I grew up in a kind of a call and response tradition where someone's always speaking to the audience. I take my energy from the audience. And when you're in debate, it's a little bit different. And so while I have been on some debate teams, I have to say that what has helped me the most has been I have been given the opportunity to practice public speaking, which I think is probably one of the most important skills anyone can ever develop for the workforce. And so for me, while I was a part of the debate team, where I got real practice was being part of student government, being asked to present in class, and being asked to present in my faith community. And I, from the time I was probably 10 years old, I belonged to a very small congregation, and I was asked to welcome guests, read a poem, speak on something that might have been in the Bible. I don't know if I was saying it right, but I was up on my feet speaking to audiences. And I was very, very shy. I was so nervous. You know, I used to look all the way in the back of the room and look up at the corner of the room, you know, because I felt so shy. And being asked to speak gave me the opportunity to work through that, find my voice. And I'm grateful. I mean, I still get nervous but I've learned that when you tell stories that are about your truths, no one can take that away from you. And so I always try to somehow incorporate that. And today, because it was being in front of young people, I always want young people to know that no matter your circumstances, if you get an education or you're around great caring adult mentors and others who can help you, that you can go wherever you want. And that's been the story of my life. I wouldn't be sitting here but for that. And you all are some great journalists, so don't forget me when you're, you know, working for these big publications. You know, just remember, you know, I was one of your first interviewees. And
I know, it's exciting. Well, I asked that just because me and Timothy are heavily involved in speech and debate, and we see that clear linkage between like being able to have access to extracurricular activities like student government, like speech and debate, and then being able to then alleviate the pressures of social media and the mental health implications that come with that. So like, what are some efforts that California is doing that really excite you that are starting to offset those pressures that our social media are giving kids today?
Really great question, thank you. I think schools are trying to get the message across. To be honest, most schools are still asking questions about how to implement a cell phone ban, so to speak. But I think everyone recognizes that if students can get involved in other things, right? Sports, debate, student government, drama, whatever it is, go do it and love it. It will make you healthier. It will help you to be stronger. It will help you to come out of your comfort zone. And that was true for me. I signed up for every single activity that existed. I was in drama, I was in choir, I was on the wrestling team, I was on the gymnastics team, I joined the debate team. I tried it all. And it's how you learn and you make friends and you figure out who you are. And so I think to your point, there are alternatives to just being on our phones. And this is not just for young people, adults are the same. Most of the people I know, they tell me they basically go to bed with their phone right next to them. They can't put it down, right? And so I think this is an opportunity for young people to find other things, extracurriculars that will be their passion. And for someone like me, the way I grew up, I needed those extracurriculars to find my way. The books were fine, school was fine, I did like school, but I think what I liked the most was the extracurricular activities, and it really helped me to develop as a person, and I hope that California's young people get that same opportunity.
We definitely feel as though we do.
Yes.
I think we're about in everything,
Yes.
just as you spoke about that. Thank
sure.
you. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor.
So insightful.
Can I ask you all a question?
Of course.
Sure thing.
How did you get into this position of interviewing guests?
Well, it's actually kind of like just through the California Partners Project, and I didn't really expect to be in an interview role, but I'm happy to be in it.
Yeah.
I think we both gained a lot of confidence in communication through speech and debate.
Yeah.
But then, like you were talking about, like I started in basketball, in dance, in drama, in speech and debate, and I just did everything. And then those experiences naturally fueled and informed me to do things like this.
Nice,
For
nice.
sure. Same story for me. We both, I feel, joined this YAC or Youth Advisory Committee because of our love for advocacy through things like speech. And then we just got this opportunity to attend Safer Internet Day and possibly be an interviewer. And it's been so cool to get to talk to everyone here and hear about their perspectives. Sometimes things that we as youth don't really get to hear, like the adult side of the story or the side of lawmakers, policymakers, and things like that. So it's been really insightful.
Yeah, we've had a fun day.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, if you find yourselves working in journalism in the future, I hope that you'll find time to keep working together because you have a great sense of camaraderie. And I haven't been a part of a lot of team-led interviews, but I think you might be starting a new trend here. So when you get your blog going, and you're both doing your thing or your podcast, keep doing what you're doing. I'm very proud of you. Our future is bright because of you. And if you ever need help from me or from any of us at the California Department of Education, please get in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For your leadership.
Thank you.